Hi friends, this reflection is for the 26th Sunday of Ordinary Time. Powerful readings, aren't they? I agree. So let's break them down. So we hear the theme of poor, right? Poor could mean anything at this point. From the prophet Amos, and what we hear common from the prophets, and of course to be echoed in the gospel, is the word woe. W-O-E, that is, right? Woe can be defined as a cry, so to speak, a concern. In the opening, Prophet Amos says, "Woe to the complacent in Zion, lying upon beds of ivory, stretched comfortably on their couches. They eat lambs taken from the flock and cows from the stall. They drink wine from bowls and anoint themselves with the best oils. Yet they are not made ill by the collapse of Joseph. Therefore, now they shall be the first to go in exile, and a wanton revelry should be done away with." I think it's very powerful, isn't it? You see, the prophets, why were the prophets, why do we hear about them, the major and the minors? Well, first of all, they came at a time when Israel was living comfortably, and they thought, you know what, we don't need God. We can do whatever we please. You see, throughout history, that's been the problem with a lot of civilizations. They get too comfortable. Over time, the country would be corrupt, not from the outside, but from within. We see it with the Romans. We see it with the Egyptians. We saw it with the Greeks. We saw it with the French. We saw it with the Romans. We saw it with many of the most powerful nations of the world. Why do so many of them collapse? It's because they didn't get their inner house in order. Now, I'm not just saying making sure everything was great. They cared more about other nations that they forgotten their own people. Now, I'm not trying to make a political statement, but it actually happened in history. You can Google it. Every major nation that ever existed, when they got to the high point, they got too comfortable that everything fell apart. And they have most likely to go back to square one. Right? In the 146th Psalm that was chosen for this Sunday, we hear the phrase, "The Lord loves the just, and he protects the strangers." The psalmist even goes on to say that the wicked he thwarts, and the Lord shall reign forever. You see, there's something deeper that we hear about in these readings. Even St. Paul tells us that in his letter to Timothy, who was his protege at the time, that our job is to pursue righteousness, devotion, faith, love, patience, and gentleness. Compete well for the faith. You see, the problem with much of the world today is that we're not competing with faith. Rather, we're competing with things that are not going to satisfy our spiritual souls. And when we distance ourselves from God, we distance from eternal glory. St. Peter Chrysologus reminds us about as he broke down today's gospel. He says, "The poor man full of swords is stationed at the rich man's doorway, but this occurred not by some human coincidence, but by God's design, in order that the contest between the rich and the poor may play itself out on earth and have its audience in heaven." He will go on to say, "The rich man was protected by throngs of servants. The poor man, his skin torn away, was being prodded by his stinging pain. The rich man was hurling spears of heartlessness, while Lazarus was repelling them with his shield of compassion. You see, friends, what we need to do if we want to avoid the fate of many of the greatest global powers of the world that collapsed because they didn't care about what was inside their walls and their nation and what have you, we must learn to be compassionate towards others. St. Teresa of Calcutta reminds us that when we encounter the poor, we see the face of Christ. As a matter of fact, she reminds us we see the face of Christ in every person that we encounter in our daily lives. How often do we ignore the poor? Now, I get it. I'm not the type that likes to give out cash, because what if it's a setup? I get that. But rather, maybe just give them something to eat. Maybe you didn't eat your whole lunch or whatever. Maybe you have, like, I don't know, like the other half of a peanut butter jelly sandwich. That's good enough. Give them the other half. You know, you didn't finish your food. Why don't you put it in the container and give it to the homeless person that's probably at the corner of your house? Those little simple things reminds us, like what Lazarus did, is because he showed compassion towards others. In this life, we are called to show that to others. And it doesn't matter what their life story is or whatever. You know, they just need something to eat. They need some clothes. I think it's safe to say that I think we need to do a better job in ourselves. I mean, let's face it. I think there are some Christian churches that have done a phenomenal job with everything that they do to help those that are less fortunate. And of course, you know, Catholics, I'm not saying everybody, but some could probably do a little better. And I feel like, too, if somebody's watching this, it probably makes maybe more money than I do, and probably in that percentage where, you know, you're wealthy or whatever, you may want to consider giving extra money, you know, to someone in need. And I'm not just saying just money, but maybe just like maybe buy extra food up and to give to that homeless person. Now, I'm not saying buy for every homeless person you encounter. It only takes one. In this life, too, we must be compassionate towards every person that we encounter. When we show compassion, we see the face of God's mercy in every person that we encounter. So, friends, as we navigate the 26th week of Ordinary Time, let's keep God's commandment. Let us pursue what is right, what is love, what is patient, gentle, and compassionate. God bless.